You're listening to LA40 with Katerina Cozias, only on LA Talk Radio.
So we're talking about, are you stuck in a corporate rut? And if you are, how anxious are you about being stuck in a corporate rut? So welcome back. It's LA40. It is Thursday morning, and I am your host, Katerina Cozias. And as always, I am so pumped because today in studio, I have two fabulous guests with me who they did the leap. They jumped from 15 plus years of corporate into entrepreneurship. And I had the gumption, I'll use that politically correct word, to dive into the unknown. And, when a lot of people don't. And they're going to share their stories and also share some of their background because they're both becoming experts in their new fields. So I'm excited to have you guys join us. We are live streaming on Facebook. So if you're following us on Facebook this morning, do let us know where you're coming in from. Because although we are streaming from LA, right, LA Talk Radio, it's the internet. So that means we reach everyone. So we're happy to have you, everyone, here with us. Today, sitting next to me, lovely Sommer Janssen. Sommer, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
Sommer is certified in Integrative Wellness. She's coming off of 15 years as an HR professional and got to a point sort of, like we all do in those kind of later 30s where you're going, is this really how I want to spend the next 20 years of my life? I've done it. I've seen it. I have built up a bit of a pension plan, and now it's time to do something different. So, Sommer, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
And kind of on that same path is Eric Neff. Eric, how you doing?
Good.
Good. Traffic was okay for you?
It was fine.
Yeah, it's pretty good this time of morning. Actually,
Yeah.
This time of morning for us is great because it's that non-traffic peak hour.
Yeah.
Eric, very similar, ad exec for almost 15 plus years, corporate, and just was. His is an interesting story because he was part of the 119 million Americans right now, 60% of Americans who were on some sort of prescription drug for anxiety, for stress, and he got to a point where he said, this is just ridiculous. I cannot be on this drug for the rest of my life. I'm going to look into something that's going to be an alternative, and decided that he was going to develop his own botanical, holistic alternative to combat anxiety. So if you're on Xanax, if you're on, what was the other one back in the 80s with the V? Valium?
Valium.
Oh, yeah.
If you're on any of those, you want to stay tuned because we've got a good show ahead.
Very nice.
So I'm going to start with Sommer first, and then we'll go into Eric so he can help us clear our anxiety. Eric,
I'll do my best.
That's right. So Sommer, just share a little bit about kind of your journey of where you came from corporate-wise. And again, I don't want anyone to think that corporate is bad. Right, but I'm just finding that more and more people, as they're heading into their 40s, they sort of do take a step and say, am I built for this? Am I cut out for this? Or did I just do it because it was part of society's checkbox, right? Go to school, get good grades, get a good job, get the pension plan, get the house, get the job, get the wife, get the dog, get the divorce, right? It's all part of the checklist. So, how much of that is put on us without us even realizing that there are some other alternatives. So I'll throw it to your court first.
Okay.
Let us know a little bit about your journey.
Okay, so make sure I'm close enough to this mic.
You know what? You're actually close, but you just got to have the booming voice come
Okay.
out. There you go.
Okay, so it's funny that you mentioned, kind of the stigma around corporate because a lot of people have that, and actually, I guess I had the opposite of that, where my parents were like, don't go into corporate. This is a terrible idea.
What were your parents doing? What was their background? Were they artists?
They were artists.
Okay.
My dad was a sculptor, and my mom was a tour guide for a historic mansion. So they kind of put it upon me, go for what you want, do what you love, and make sure that it's something that's in line with, what your values are. But I said, you know what, I'm going to go into corporate and I'm going to make something of myself and I'm going to, go as far as I can.
Okay.
But after I got into that, they were supportive and they said, go for it. We love you.
Yeah, of course.
We want you to be happy. So after I had done it for a while, though, I kind of got to that burnout stage. And I was doing it, and I realized that while I was chasing that pension and, you know, the stability, that the only thing that was constant was change. And
what do you mean by that?
Well, I was looking for everything to stay the same, and I thought if I kept moving forward in the job and I kept getting better and better at what I was doing, that suddenly I would just be stable. But things kept falling out from under me. You know,
that's called life. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And you have to, you know, roll with those punches.
Sure.
But I just decided that change in the job, change with people, turnover, you know, having to hire new people, having to learn new skills was something that was constant. So that's what I mean when I say change was constant, because you want it to stay the same, but it doesn't. So the only constant is that change.
Yeah.
And I think when you're getting a lot of that change is when you get a little bit of that anxiety, right? Where you're trying to keep up because everything is shifting and moving. If you're just tuning in, you're tuning in to another episode of LA40 here at LA Talk Radio. I'm with Sommer Janssen and Eric Neff. They're our guests today. I failed to mention that we would love to have you be part of this conversation. So before we go any further, feel free to dial in if you have any comments or questions for our guests today. The dial-in number is 818-570-5085. 570-5085. I have finally memorized that. I used to have to look down at my cheat sheet, but I got it now. So change. How about you? Did you feel as though you were kind of chasing a corporate ladder and feeling the anxiety around change?
Well, I've suffered from anxiety in my whole life.
Okay.
And but for me in the corporate world, I lost my passion for it.
All right. So your background, give us a quick 101 on where you came from.
Yeah. So I've been in advertising and marketing my whole career, and for over 15 years. My partner and I built multiple businesses. We had about 4 businesses underneath our parent company umbrella. And it began to grow, which was exciting and what we wanted, but it also at the same time brought on a lot of additional stress. And I guess it really wasn't what I wanted to sign up for. So ultimately, I had to make a really big change in my life and decide if I wanted to continue on this path or if I want to move forward with something that's completely new, a total change, but something that I truly wanted to do because I had the passion for it. Right. And I think that one of the most important things that I've found is that if you don't have a passion for what you do, then you're not really going to fully enjoy your life. And so my goal was to merge something that I wanted to do with my life, which is helping others with building my own brand and my own company.
Yeah. And we're going to get to what that company is in just a second, but I want to bump it back to Sommer, because based off of what Eric just said, right, you get to a point where you're not feeling that fulfillment that you thought you were going to feel. And you know, as a human being, I mean, you know, I get excited about doing this show because this is a little bit what it's about, is just reminding people, especially that are going into their 40s, going into their 50s, that you can, if you still are feeling that passion, it's not necessarily too late.
Absolutely.
You know, and as a society, we're going to live till we're 100 probably, you know, with medical advancements. I certainly don't want to be miserable for 60 more years, you know, like I really don't.
Absolutely not.
So you decided, Sommer, that you were going to move out of corporate and do what? What was calling your heart?
Okay, so I realized that what I loved in the human resources field was helping people. So similar to what you're saying, you want to help other people to live their passions and live their dreams. And I went into integrative wellness because I had actually had some health scares myself. Because when you go for the grind and you're in corporate, you sometimes forget about yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And you say, okay, I'm going to have more coffee or more Red Bull or more whatever it is, not realizing it tears your system down.
Now, for the audience that may not be familiar with integrative wellness, what is that?
So integrative wellness is a newer modality of holistic wellness, like well-being. So it's about coaching towards balance, about finding balance in our body system. So we have 4 body systems: mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual, under this training that I have.
Sure.
And you have to find balance. So somebody might come and say, well, I'm 10 pounds overweight and I want to lose that, but every time I go to the gym and I lose it, it keeps coming back. Because the problem probably was not
the food.
Yeah.
Right.
It was the emotions behind it that are causing you to eat your feelings
right.
and make you gain that weight.
Sure.
So
now, if someone is stuck in a corporate rut, what would you advise them to do without necessarily taking the steps that you both took, which is to completely change things? But let's say you're in a bit of a rut, and it doesn't, I guess, necessarily even have to be corporate, because you could be in a rut with your relationship, you could be in a rut with your gym workout routine. Why do people get into a rut? First of all, let's go back to that maybe.
I'll take that.
Sure, yeah.
Well, I think it's very common for people to get complacent and used to their daily life, whether it's spending 10 years at a specific job or in a relationship that doesn't quite serve you because it's comfortable. And so I think that the first thing that I would recommend is talk to somebody. I mean, there are bountiful of resources out there that you can talk to a therapist. There's cognitive behavioral therapy that can help you address some of the kind of the destructive thoughts that come to your mind, and then help you with tools in order to kind of figure out if that is the right decision or not. So I think therapy and actually just talking to someone, finding a friend, finding a colleague, a mentor.
But is there not still a bit of a stigma? I mean, I know I grew up with a bit of a stigma around, social workers and therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists. But I find that the world is moving a little bit into a place where it's more receptive for people to reach out for some support.
Yeah.
And I'm also finding that the world is shifting to a place where there are so many people wanting to move into a space where they are offering the help, right? And you both have seemed to have done that. Eric, talk to us a little bit about what your move was when you decided, okay, I'm out of advertising, and now I'm doing something completely different. So talk to us about that.
Well, a lot of it was based on health reasons. For me, I have always struggled with anxiety, social and generalized anxiety. Throughout my career, like some of the things that would really cause the most anxiety for me would be big presentations.
Okay.
Or
fear of public speaking, right?
Yeah, the fear of public speaking.
You could have called me back then. I could put on a little blue jacket and pretend I'm Eric.
And so I was taking pharmaceutical anti-anxiety drugs for over 15 years to kind of mask those symptoms.
Yeah. And again, when I was doing a little bit of research for this show, 60% of Americans right now are on some sort of prescribed opioid. And that's 119 million people on drugs right now. And one of the biggest concerns is that these medical professionals that are prescribing the drugs are taking everyday issues and saying, okay, well, you must have some sort of disorder. Your dad just died. Okay, take a pill. No, your dad just died. Like, grieve for 3 weeks.
That's normal.
Right.
And we're not allowing society to really feel the depth of the feelings. We're masking them, and we're just perpetuating this cycle, which of course is feeding the pharmaceutical industry, which if you want to become part of it, you'll do well. So you decided to take a holistic approach to help yourself, really, is how this started?
That's correct.
Okay.
So I was taking pharmaceutical anti-anxiety drugs for over 15 years, and the doctors kept prescribing me more pharmaceutical drugs to get off of, let's say, Xanax that I was taking. And so the problem with that is that it was a very vicious cycle. I always felt sedated. I always had these really weird, nasty side effects. And so the big moment when I decided that something had to change is when I went to the doctor and they said, oh, I'm having this side effect for X. I said, oh, no problem. I'll just prescribe you something else. And then at that point, I was like, I have to. I can't live the rest of my life like this.
Jumping from one to the other.
Correct.
Just to pause you for a moment. So, Sommer, you had mentioned too that you were having some physical, I guess there's symptomatic I guess it's your body's way of telling you that you need to change. What were you feeling, and were you on any sort of medication?
Yeah,
at the time.
Well, I wasn't, but then I started having panic attacks, and
Okay.
I was very overstressed. I remember I was going through a divorce, no big deal.
But you see, that's a life thing. You don't necessarily
Yeah.
have to be on medication. You're going through a divorce. Your life is falling apart. It's called cry.
Exactly. And I remember standing in the middle of the hallway crying, and I called my doctor, and I was like, I can't move. I don't know what to do. And she prescribed Xanax for me. So Xanax helped momentarily, but I grew up with a dad who had PTSD, and he carried around a bag full of medicine. And it was like you said, they're like, oh, take this pill to fix this pill and the problem that you're having with that one.
Right.
So I didn't want to be in that place. So I started digging deeper. And the thing about being stuck in a rut, psychologically, there are, and you guys jump in wherever you want to, but psychologically there are reasons why we stay stuck in that place. And
What are some of those psychological reasons? Because
Okay.
I'm always curious, right? When people sit and they complain for 10 years and they don't do anything,
Yeah.
what keeps them stuck?
yeah, well, one of them is called sunk cost fallacy.
Okay. Sunk cost fallacy. Sounds interesting.
Fancy word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Words. That basically means that we've invested so much of our time into something that we don't want to give up on it. So we keep saying, well, if we just put more into it, then we're going to get to that stage. There's also wishful thinking. So, we think, oh, we'll just work harder and it'll be fine and everything will come back to us and we'll fix it. Another one is pipe dreaming. And I wrote an article about this actually on my website, but pipe dreaming is basically saying, I'm going to run off to the Bahamas because I'm going to win the lottery. So you can stay stuck in the place where you are because your brain builds constructs of why it's okay for you to stay there.
I see.
Summer's website, we've failed to mention it at the beginning of the program, is she's the founder of a website called Awaken Now, and delves into some of her services and some of these topics that she blogs about and offers some coaching around. And Eric, his website is neffnaturals.com, because you then, Eric, after taking, looking at things that were happening, not only to you, but to people like Summer, to people, probably some of your colleagues around, decided you were going to develop your own alternative to a Xanax type of drug. How did that come about?
Yeah.
Like, how do you go from advertising exec to now I'm just going to develop my own vitamin?
Right.
That's kind of crazy.
a lot of
that's 180 degrees right there.
For sure.
a lot of really nerdy research and late nights just studying. For me, it became this kind of challenge that, okay, I set a goal that I wanted to be off of pharmaceutical anti-anxiety drugs by the beginning of 2017.
Okay.
So then I began to take some different herbs and amino acids and different ingredients, all of which were in different, like pill bottles. So I was taking like 10 pills a day from different bottles.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, I through my research, I found the specific formula that, for me, allowed me to feel calm yet alert. As opposed to when I was on the pharmaceuticals, I felt sedated,
Right.
and I
Kind of out of it. You were calm, but that's because you had nothing.
yeah, like
Right?
I just didn't
Yeah,
even
they
feel
don't
like I
even
was
know.
living
Right.
in my body.
Yeah.
And then so I felt calm, and then or sedated, and they also had a lot of side effects.
Right.
So I was seeking this formula that was more gentle on your system, and used things derived from the earth to help with my problem. So
What are some of the ingredients in your vitamins now?
So I have American ginseng, I have ashwagandha, passion flower, rhodiola, I just said American ginseng, phenibut, and theobromine.
Okay.
And American ginseng and ashwagandha are great for building the immune system. And one of the things that I found is that if your immune system is weak, if your brain is not functioning at its optimal potential, then you have less of a tolerance to stress. So my goal is to build your immune system, improve cognitive function, so that you have a higher tolerance for stress, and that allows you to deal with it a little bit better. And then I also have some herbs in there that also calm your body too.
Wow.
That's great.
Yeah, no, it is great. We'll get to how you at home can tune in and buy some of this product by the end of the episode. So don't go anywhere, because we're gonna let you fill you in on how you can get this. But I do just want to go back a little bit to, one of the things that I notice when I talk to people that want to make a change but can't is there's just this innate fear, right? What's going to happen if I quit my job? What's going to happen if I try something and I fail? And I'm sure those fears were playing in your own heads. How long did it take you to give yourself mental permission to say, I'm done with this chapter and I'm going to make a new chapter for myself?
It was ongoing for a long time. And by a long time, I mean probably 4 or 5 years. I tossed the idea back and forth. I tried to find that one idea that was going to say, this is what I can do now. And I tried to make it the same as what I had been doing, which just doesn't happen. You don't just become an expert and then you hop into another expert field. There's a lot of trial and error that goes with it.
You became an expert because you spent 15 years doing human resources,
right.
And so you knew that. And it's funny because Sommer and I were talking just before we started the program. We were talking offline about confidence and self-confidence. And I'd love for you to share what you had just talked about with everyone, because you'll appreciate her point here. So go ahead.
So I went through a neuro-linguistic programming course, and I'm certified in that as well. So that I use a lot of those techniques in my in your work with clients.
Sure.
And with that, they mentioned that when we're not feeling confident, we don't need more confidence. We need more experience, because what happens is you're an expert, let's say, in some field. You feel confident. Think about the last time that you were an ad exec, or anything that you've done where you felt confident. You did that for years and years, so you built up that experience. And then we try to go into a new field, for example, and we don't have the same confidence because we don't have the experience. So we don't need more confidence, we need more experience.
Yeah, because I think if you have confidence, it's going to come, but the lack of confidence comes because you feel that you don't have the skill set.
Yeah.
But of course, that's not going to come immediately. And I think part of the problem that society is dealing with these days, and especially the last 10 years, is the fact that with the internet, with everything at our fingertips, things are just like boom, boom, boom. I mean, all of us, we're not old, but we're old enough to remember 20 years ago when I first started going to the bar, and we would have to call the taxi to come and get us. So you'd dial it up, you'd wait on hold for 20 minutes.
Right.
You'd then have to wait for 45 minutes for it to show up, and then you'd go out.
Yeah.
Well, that's very different than calling an Uber and having it be downstairs in 2.5 minutes.
Right.
And so our as a society, we're shifting in terms of our patience with things. But you can't have it immediately. You need to put in those 10,000 hours. You need to build up that skill set.
Yeah.
And I also don't think that you need to be scared of the fail, because it's the fail that's going to teach you the right way to do things, So.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most important things that I always try and remind myself of is I've got one life to live. We're only here for a very short period of time. So let's embrace it and take it and do what we're passionate about and do what we want to do. I struggle all the time with not having the confidence to think that I can start this business or to help others or
How did you start the business? Like, again, for people, because you may be out there and you may have your job, you may be a CPA, a tax accountant, but you've always wanted to run a food truck. But you don't know the first thing about food trucks, right? You didn't know the first thing about vitamins, really developing and bottling and shipping and retailing them. How did you start? Did you start researching the passion, or did you start researching the tactical?
I actually started researching the tactical. Because it was affecting me personally, I was specifically researching herbs and amino acids and different ingredients that I can incorporate into my diet and into my life that would help improve my personal situation with anxiety. But I also began to eat better. It's a complete life change. So, it took a long time, but it took me a couple years to get to where I am now, but it's only because of these total transformative life changes that I've been working on to, to make it happen.
And that's my next question, I guess, to both of you. How important is the internal game?
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
It's everything.
Yeah, I would agree. It's everything, because it all starts here. It all starts inside, because you can fake as much as you want. A lot of people, especially in Los Angeles, do. But you know what's going on inside. And if you don't have some plan or feel some kind of confidence, even if you have to go into yourself and go to therapy forever, if you don't have it.
Yeah, there's, let's do a little exercise.
Okay.
You two at home.
Yeah, you
All
two at home.
You two
Okay.
at home. We're doing an exercise.
This is about that voice that's inside of your head. Now, sit there and say hello to yourself. Just say hello.
Can we close our eyes?
You don't need to.
Okay, I'm going to close my eyes.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Now say hello again.
Okay.
Now that voice that is in your head has a constant narrative that essentially narrates your entire life. It talks to you about your shortcomings. It talks to you about the tree that's out there, that pretty dog. It's like this. It is a voice inside your head that if you don't separate yourself from it, if you don't become the listener of that voice and understand that you have control over that inner dialogue, then you can get caught up in it, and it gets very destructive at times.
At times, at a lot of times.
Yeah.
My question is, how do you do that? Logically, you're aware, well, and maybe most people aren't even aware. Thank you for making us aware that there is that voice. And I know for me, I've heard it many times, and it's been a battle with the other self.
Sure.
But how do you go about consciously taking over?
It is a very, very long-term
Commitment, basically.
Yeah, I mean, when you do yoga and when you meditate, it's all about just thanking yourself for being part of that practice.
Right.
Not to judge, not to give yourself negative self-talk.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about, I'm going to improve little by little every day. And then over time, you begin to make those big improvements.
Yeah, and big improvements are really what has to happen, what has to take place. Sommer, how does one go about killing some of those negative beliefs? Because as Eric mentioned, most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, you will get that voice that's saying, oh, you're too fat, you can't do it, people are going to laugh at you. How do you combat that? What are some practical steps people can take? Do they do affirmations? Should they meditate? What should they do to help move them into that sphere that Eric's talking about?
Okay, so those are all helpful techniques that you mentioned, yoga, affirmations, meditation. I think the most important part is to identify what they are, and there are a couple of different ways to do that.
What is?
What the limiting beliefs
Okay.
are. So the voice that's playing in your head or the tape that's playing.
Sure.
I think you have to figure out, first of all, I always tell my clients, is there a location in your body where you're feeling something when you hear this voice? So, if they're saying, hey, your jacket, looks stupid or something like that, like I tell myself sometimes, oh, this doesn't look good. You have to find out where that's coming from, because a lot of times it comes from someone. I don't want to say someone said that specifically in your past,
Okay.
but a lot of the voices in our heads have someone's voice attached to them.
Okay.
So if you can do meditations to listen to those voices, and I know that sounds like a crazy person.
I was going to say, yeah, I'm going to go there for a lot of people that may not necessarily be meditating. Although, again, more and more people are starting to recognize the benefits of all of this. But if you're not a meditator, I mean, what does that mean? Just sit in a room quietly and listen? Listen for what? Listen for the voice?
I think meditation to me means being mindful of the now and living in the moment the best that you can. For me, I have always had anxiety about the future and been, upset about the past, or so I've always kind of lived on one side or the other, and now I've really made a big focus in my life to live in the here and now. We're here talking today. All of our guests out there are listening to us. let's think about taking a moment to feel our senses. The touch, what you're smelling around you. These are little ways that we can reconnect ourselves with the present moment, and that moment is the most important moment of all.
Yeah. I'm going to do something crazy and just get out of the screen for a minute because I want to grab my phone and play off of something you just said. Hang on. I don't know if you guys can still see me. I'm back. Hang on. I'm coming back. And that's so important. I'm going to pull up a photo that I sent to my sister yesterday, and it's talking about stress, and it's talking about the stress. Okay, so listen to this, folks. This is kind of crazy. Things that people worry about. Things that never happen 40% of the time. You worry about things that never happen 40% of the time. 30% of the time, you think about the past things that can't be changed by worrying because they're in the past, right? 12% of the time, you're thinking about needless health worries. So not actual ones, but you go into that hypochondriac mode of, oh, I found a little freckle, maybe I've got skin cancer. Like 10% is petty miscellaneous worries. Am I going to miss the bus? Is the light going to turn red before I get there? 8% of the things we worry about are real, legitimate worries. That's incredible. Yeah. That amount of energy that we're spending, 92% of the energy we spent on worrying is for things that never, ever come to pass. Because as you said, you're thinking about the past, you're thinking about the future, and you're missing the fact that we're sitting here right now.
And how beautiful is it, The world is at such an incredible place, and we are so fortunate to be here and now in the, with the loving people that are around us, and it's just something that I think I remind myself of every day.
Every day, and one of the things that Sommer does, I don't know if you do it every day, but you talked about it this morning, is you go on a gratitude walk.
I do.
One of the things like a meditation or yoga that you can do. Talk to us about your gratitude walk. What is that?
Okay. So in the idea of, if you've ever heard of law of attraction, so imagining things that you want in your life, visualizing them and drawing them to yourself. A gratitude walk would be just realizing that you're grateful for things in your life, friends, opportunities. I went on one this morning. I did a Facebook Live, and I thanked all my friends for all their love and support. And, I said I'm getting ready to go on LA40 with Katerina, and it's going to be so wonderful. And I was just grateful for the opportunity. So,
so that's just basically going out into nature, going for a walk, but really feeling the depth of it.
Yeah.
Right.
So
not going on your walk and doing all your text messages and stressing out.
No, and
there's a difference.
I used my phone for Facebook Live, but I wasn't texting, and I certainly didn't take any calls, and I just looked at nature around me and the blue sky, and I felt my feet walking on the ground, and I just connected.
You connected. Now I have to ask, because I'm sure there's people wanting to connect that have 3 kids that are running around like crazy people. Do you have any kids?
I do.
Okay, so you can still gratitude walk with children. Awesome.
Yes.
How many kids do you have?
I have one. She's 11.
Okay, so 11-year-old little girl?
Little girl, yes.
Little girl, okay. Perfect.
But when she was smaller, there were times where I had that crazy mom moment where the hair is going to the side, and in those moments I would take her with me.
Okay.
I would just grab her, walk around the block, and she loves nature too, so it worked out.
Perfect. Eric, any kids for you?
No kids.
Any kids coming down the pipe? Perhaps?
I'm sure.
Putting you on the spot right now.
Yeah.
That's right.
I have 2 dogs, and I have a little puppy right now, so that's, it's kind of like a child.
Absolutely. Especially here.
Especially here, yeah. If you are tuning in, we were talking about being stuck in a rut, kind of going from corporate to entrepreneurship. And I want to go back to Eric for just a moment, because are you on any pharmaceutical drugs now, or have you cut that off completely?
I am on 0 pharmaceutical
Okay, so you
drugs.
made that goal of going into 2017 off of everything.
Correct.
Except what you're formulating for yourself.
Correct.
And for the broader market. All right.
So I used to suffer from really terrible migraines, and through my research, I found that magnesium citrate is something that you can take on a daily basis that will help with migraines. It's essentially a deficiency within your body.
Now, what naturally would we find magnesium citrate in, food-wise?
I can't speak to that, but
Okay.
what I can say is that it's available in a supplement form.
Okay, gotcha. And that's good for headaches and migraines?
Yeah, it is.
Interesting. It's interesting that you mentioned headache because I never get headaches. I'm thankfully, knock on wood, pretty healthy. But I've had a headache literally for 24 hours. And I popped some Advil, and then I popped some Tylenol because the Advil didn't really work. And it's still sort of persistent. So I'm wondering if I should chat with you about the magnesium afterwards.
Yeah, that might be
You know,
helpful.
you never know. Yeah.
Mhm.
So Eric, you now have a botanical line of supplements. What are you offering in the marketplace right now?
So we just launched our flagship product called Botanical Balance last month.
Yay,
And
congratulations.
Yes, I'm so excited about it, and I'm very proud. We've also been getting an amazing response from it too.
Perfect.
So that is the first product of a line of Neff Naturals products for various health and well-being, I guess, challenges in your life.
The first one that you talked about is to combat anxiety, right? But still keep you alert.
Right. So
Yes.
it's a supplement for anxiety. We say that it provides a calm yet alert state of mind, and it's been a game changer for me, obviously, because of the getting off of the pharmaceuticals. This particular formula was fundamental in helping me make that transition off of the pharmaceutical drugs. And so I thought, if I can help myself with some of the challenges I face in my life, maybe I can help others. Maybe there are other people out there that are in a similar situation.
And the situation, I'm sure Summer could have used this 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Pop one of Eric's Neff
some of those,
Naturals,
yeah.
right? So, and also, Summer, tell us a little bit about, one more time, with your coaching and your, where you're coming from with the integrative wellness side of things. If somebody wanted to work with you, what could they expect?
So I work with male and female clients. I have both, but my focus is on female clients, women specifically who are professionals or in corporate jobs who want to make that leap into entrepreneurship because it's really hard. So
It is hard.
yeah, and I always tell women, no offense to guys, I always tell women to build up your girlfriends, or it could go for guys as well, just build up a good network of friends. But I work on transformation and transition.
Okay.
So if people are working with me, they can expect to dig deep, so that can be a little bit scary because you have to kind of
Dig deep into this subconscious, what's
Yeah.
going on inside.
Yeah,
Interesting.
because sometimes where we don't have what's called congruency is when our subconscious and our conscious aren't together. They're not aligned. So your subconscious is always going to win. And they say that it's driving 90% of the time. So if you've got 10% conscious mind, then you've got to make sure your subconscious is healthy.
And I think that goes back to what Eric had said a little bit earlier, which is you have to consciously be conscious of the subconscious mind, right? Which is the
Yeah.
one that's quite possibly making a lot of your decisions for you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when the same thing, I won't go too deep into it, but with limiting beliefs, that's where we get our hang up is when our subconscious mind remembers all the times that all these bad things happen to us or these situations, and our conscious mind is like, no, we don't remember that, it's fine, we're not going to listen to that.
Right.
So they're not in alignment. And so that's what I help people do, is to align their conscious and subconscious.
If you had to tell your 20-year-old self something, what would you tell her?
Slow down. I would tell her that being present, like Eric said, is really super important. Just to be in the moment and be mindful of what's going on and just appreciate yourself for the gifts that you have.
Right. As you're going into 40, how about I'm gonna frame this a little bit differently for Eric. What do you hope to tell yourself, your 60-year-old self, 20-ish years from now?
What do I hope to tell them? Well, my 60-year-old self is the person who I strive to be. So I want to continually improve myself and my relationships and help the world around me every day, so that by the time I'm 60, I'll look back or I'll look ahead and say, wow, that guy is really great.
Right.
I really want to be like him.
Can you balance that in contrast to what you'd said a little bit earlier, which is, not living too much in the future? How do you contrast that striving to be the man you want to be with the present moment? without getting too far ahead of yourself and anxious again about am I stepping into that person I know I'm supposed to be?
Yeah, one of the big challenges for me was the feeling of overwhelm. I would wake up in the morning and just kind of be paralyzed with all the things that I had to do in the day. So I really I make things as simple as possible, and I break things up into little bite-sized chunks. Rather that is, an email that I need to send out. I usually give myself a timeline.
Okay.
I'll say, I have 30 minutes to answer these emails, and then I'm going to move on to something else.
Which is a little bit interesting because I find, again, it's difficult with the distractions because you're emailing, let's say, and you've got your 30 minutes for email, and if you can chunk it like that, fantastic. But what I find happens with me is then somebody pops up on my Skype.
Oh, yeah.
And then, so the Skype distraction, and then I hear the buzzer going off that my WhatsApp is moving, and then, and it's coming from all areas.
Yeah.
I literally will sometimes call my family on a weekend and say, I'm turning my phone off Friday night, and I'm turning it back on Monday morning because I need to just concentrate and be quiet. And I can't do that with, WhatsApp and Messenger and Facebook and texting. And there's 100,000 different applications that are keeping us distracted. So if you can focus, I think that's great advice.
Yeah, and I think that what you're doing is great advice too. I mean, to be able to step away from that phone or the technology for even an hour a day, maybe it's during dinner time, to help bring the family a little closer together.
Right.
I think that's a great start.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. All right. Well, the hour has been flying by. We haven't had any callers, which is, I like getting call-ins because it gets the conversation kind of flowing, but that's okay because we've got a good conversation going here. One thing that I want to maybe help remind people is that anyone that's starting something new doesn't know what they're doing. But you have to sort of dig deep and get that sense of confidence. With you, Eric, in terms of growing your business, are you worried at all about pushback from the pharmaceutical industry?
I am.
In terms of putting up bigger barriers to entry for you or coming at you, because I can't imagine that any of these people that are offering the system chemotherapy when there's a holistic Chinese approach that can get rid of the cancer are very happy when people like you come into the marketplace.
Yeah, they there's a number of different ways that they prevent companies like ours from succeeding really, and they have the financial backing to do so. So it is a worry. What I focus on is doing my job and doing it well and servicing my customers, and I let my legal team focus on that.
How important, and to his point, how important, Sommer, is focusing on what you're good at and delegating the stuff that you're not?
It's very important. You have to, I think a lot of people have a tendency to focus on what they're not good at, which makes a deficit, and then they try to fill that hole in, which then causes anxiety and they get stressed out. But I think it's important to figure out what you're good at and focus on that. And what you're not good at, you can delegate out. You can partner with people.
I'm noticing that with myself. I asked the question because one of the things that I'm horrific at is social media. Okay. Like just dismally terrible. I hate it, and I don't like doing it, and my social media is suffering for it. And I get anxiety about the thought of having to do it because my skill set lies in something else. So if I can focus my skill set on what I'm good at and bring that passion, that expertise, and pay someone $15 an hour to do my social media, then everyone's happy. And I think too many people feel they have to do everything.
Yeah, and I think that one of the biggest steps is recognizing where your strengths are not, where you have your strengths, and then hiring a team or a couple of freelancers around you to help you improve the areas in which you're not.
And that's why we see a lot of entrepreneurs coming into their own around 40, 45, because they needed those 20 years to understand what they know and what they don't know, what they're good at and what they're not good at. We get these, the 22-year-old that sold his, mini Google and he's a multimillionaire, and that's great. Those stories are great. But what you see more of is people in their 40s and 50s that are saying, now I'm ready. And in fact, it's people in their 60s that are at the very prime of entrepreneurship. Those are the guys that are killing it.
Yeah.
Because they are coming to the table with 40 years of experience. How do you compete against that, And we need to recognize that the 60 or the 70-year-old even these days is so on fire, so
Yeah.
I'm a little bit passionate about this because I turned 43 months ago.
Congratulations.
So I'm
Congrats.
I'm excited to get
Yeah.
excited,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree, and I think that with age brings a wealth of experience, a wealth of contacts that you can tap into, and I
And
think
we
it's
still
very
look good,
important.
right? We still look good.
Yeah.
We still look good. We're going to wrap that. Eric, where can we find out more about you, about Neff Naturals? How can somebody go buy some of this stuff?
So you can find my product on my website at neffsnaturals.com. That is NEFFS naturals.com. Use a promo code LA40 today. We have a one-day offer for this program. You'll receive 20% off of your order. There's a couple of retailers that we also offer the product at, one of which is Rainbow Acres, Nutritional Warehouse, and LA Urban Fitness in Santa Monica.
Awesome. Nice. Fantastic. And Sommer, how about you? Where can people reach out to you if they'd like to learn more?
So I have my website that you mentioned, Awaken Now, and it's spelled with an I-N, so AWAKINNOW.now, playing on the
Awake
idea,
in.
right, the
I
inner
like
self.
it.
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put some information on there after the show, but I'm actually putting together some vision board workshops that people can participate in October, as well as an 8-week course for women's transformation.
Fantastic. And I am Katerina, and was telling Sommer a little bit earlier, building out the back end of my website so that people that do come to the show can reach out to the guests a little more easily. And we want to make this a real collaborative community where we can get some of that expertise that we're looking for in a way that is, a little more familiar than just randomly Googling on the net. If you see them on my program, they have been vetted. They're not crazy. I'm a little crazy. They're not crazy.
But we love you.
That's right. We love you crazy. Exactly. We have some really great shows coming up. We're going to be talking about manifestation. We're going to be talking about female and male energy balances and how much of each we need. We're going to be talking about vaginal reconstruction. We are going to be talking about the Hollywood Film Festival and the LA Film Festival that are coming up, and delving into some discussions with some producers who at the age of 50 decided, I don't want to be a mom anymore. I'm going to make a movie. And hey, guess what? It's gaining recognition. So
Cool.
Stay tuned with us every week, Thursday morning, LA40, LA Talk Radio. I'm Katerina, Sommer, Eric.
Bye.
We'll see you guys again.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
Thank you.
You're listening to LA40 with Katerina Cozias, only on LA Talk Radio.